context is very, very important in terms of leveraging that knowledge with AI. And that's where I think we need to put a lot of focus on to make sure that our foundations are right, making sure that there is proper structure, context that will help build trust in all of that AI solutions that we put together around knowledge. What I feel is AI amplifies the value, but it does not replace the need for that structure. The foundations are critical to help leverage the value in AI.
Welcome to the Trailblazers podcast, presented by BST Global, where we feature the visionaries who are shaping the future of the AEC industry. My name is Eileen, Canady, Chief Marketing Officer at BST Global, and your host on today's podcast. Joining me today, we have Namitha Vinay, Knowledge and Information Leader at Mott MacDonald. Welcome, Namitha.
Thank you, Eileen.
So, Namitha, let's start by talking about your journey within your career. Mm-hmm. You started off in software engineering at Emirates Airline and Wipro, moved through nearly 8 years in data science and analytics at Nabour's Industry, and now you're leading knowledge, data, and AI strategy at Mott MacDonald across North America and Canada. So what connected those chapters, and how does that breadth of experience shape the way you approach AI in an engineering environment?
Wow. It's been a while since I've thought through my career trajectory. That's pretty long one. So what's connected all of them, I guess, is chasing that problem of how to make data usable. So with Emirates, started with building systems, then progressed into generating insights, and then finally, how is it that we can use those insights to improve real-world outcomes? In my short stint in my career, I've had wonderful mentors, and they shape me as I am today. They know who they are if they're watching this. But, all thanks to them, I'm really grateful for all of the support, whatever they've taught me. So in the oil and gas industry with neighbors, what got me started was I worked with them in terms of setting up their enterprise BI platform. So this was about many years ago. So we're talking about reports and dashboards and all that exciting stuff. But what inspired me was being with them in that journey of truly moving them into a data-driven organization. That was inspiring. Talk about a culture where a meeting is not run with PowerPoints, but with dashboards. And for a data enthusiast like me, that's extremely exciting. So start from there, and then we have reports and dashboards, and then we moved into advanced analytics. Again, groundbreaking. This was where we were looking at real-time analytics, advanced analytics, AI, big data, all of that, right? And it was not just about the analytics itself. It was about pushing the boundaries through, the patented solutions around drilling optimization, data quality, where we were actually looking at foundational problems in that industry. This is where I learned how to make data work in a rugged, high-risk, real-time environment. So from there, moved into an engineering organization where I believe the challenges are still the same, but at a different scale. Here we're looking at how to use all that decades worth of data, of knowledge that's collected, and use it scalably and consistently across projects. And that's also very exciting. I've learned quite a lot. But in terms of my breadth in experience, what's taught me was not to focus on the technology, but focus on people, processes, workflows, and how to actually impact real-world outcomes. So yeah, that's where I'm at today.
Which is amazing. And here you are, your title is Knowledge and Information Leader. And you're talking about focusing on people. And I find that very fascinating. And it's a trend that we're hearing across throughout the industry is that yes, technology is moving fast, but we need to also focus on the people.
Yes.
And so you talk about Mott MacDonald. We have some beautiful images of some of the work Mott MacDonald has done. But for those in our audience who are unfamiliar with Mott MacDonald, can you give us a quick snapshot of the firm and also help us understand how knowledge, data, and AI come together in your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mott MacDonald is a global organization. We deal with engineering management consultancy across large infrastructure projects, be it water, energy, transportation, or built environment. And my role is unique in the way that it connects knowledge, data, and AI. And that's quite exciting. But I know all of these terms are, pretty complex, but it's actually very simple in terms of the mandate of this role. It's just about how to improve or help projects deliver better. So, what does that mean? That means that in my role, there are two facets. One is how to help project teams use AI responsibly, securely. And this is where the adoption and the governance comes in, working with them closely, understanding where the pain points are, where AI actually helps them, how can we embed that into the workflows, and how is it that we kind of help them in terms of using it, as I said, safely, responsibly, but also helping guide them in terms of where not to use it. And that's been quite enlightening for me. I've learned a lot there. So that's where, this role works top or bottom up. On the top down, this is about making sure whatever we build scales. And for that, we need AI-ready data foundations. So consistent project information across all of our multiple projects. And how is it that we build scalable analytics platforms? So my role is kind of twofold there. One is working bottom up, working with the project teams, understanding their real world problems, making sure that AI really works for them. And it's not a separate technology initiative. It's not standalone. It's just a part of how they deliver. And then working top down, where we're looking at our data estate, making it AI ready, putting all of that governance and foundations in place so that we can start creating magic with AI.
Well, that's interesting. You're on both sides, top down, bottom up, which has to be a very careful balance, I'm sure. So it's a very interesting intersection. Knowledge management on one side and AI on the other. And how do you think about institutional knowledge as a strategic asset? And what does AI really make possible in terms of capturing and reusing expertise at scale across a global consultancy such as Mott MacDonald?
In engineering organizations, I found that AI is, or rather, knowledge is a strategic asset. In the sense that, yes, we have a lot of it, but it's fragmented. It's sitting across people, systems, documents. So how is it that we unlock that potential? How do we use it scalably? How do we query against that knowledge scalably? And this is where AI comes in right now, with generative AI and all of that. But what I have found is that AI, while looking at harnessing the knowledge that we have gathered, does not replace the need for structure. When I say structure, I've heard lots of folks saying, AI can actually help format your data, format all of your information. So why put a lot of work in it? But what I mean by structure is not the format and the shape of the information, it's the context. So context is very, very important in terms of leveraging that knowledge with AI. And that's where I think we need to put a lot of focus on to make sure that our foundations are right, making sure that there is proper structure, context that will help build trust in all of that AI solutions that we put together around knowledge. What I feel is AI amplifies the value, but it does not replace the need for that structure. The foundations are critical to help leverage the value in AI.
Exactly. So the foundations are critical, and we're moving somewhat. What I'm hearing is from analytics to the generative AI. So you have watched this space really evolve from this applied analytics to the decision support systems to today's generative AI conversation. So what has changed?
Before, we were dealing with structured data, right? Lots of it. And the traditional AI, as I call it, worked fantastically there. Now, what we are looking at is how do we unlock that potential from that unstructured data that we have? So, we're talking about documents, we're talking about reports, dashboards out there, the domain knowledge that we have collected, right? All of those best practices and things like that. And I feel that's where generative AI gives us that platform to be able to scale and unlock that value, and basically make sure that the knowledge is at the fingertips of our project teams, right? But again, what needs to be done is making sure that the foundations are in place to ensure that that scales across projects and it's consistent across projects. We maintain that context. We kind of build that trust in terms of the results that AI is generating, because it's very popular that generative AI is capable of hallucinating and all of that. But how do we ensure we put the guardrails in place? We make sure that the project teams use AI responsibly. And this is where adoption becomes very, very important. And also making sure the foundations are there behind the scenes to enable that. And that's where I believe context, data quality, trust all play together, and provide that robust foundation to be able to harness knowledge, put generative AI on it and all of that.
Which is interesting because you talk about setting the structure, the foundation, providing everyone with the tools, which is wonderful. That is an enormous feat within itself. But when we look at the industry with technology moving so fast, it's a lot of hype, a lot of technology. And oftentimes I hear that projects still live in a pilot mode. So what separates the tools that genuinely improve how delivery teams work from the ones that really never make it out of the proof of concept stages?
I guess this is where the distinction comes with technology-led versus people-led.
Right.
If we start pushing tools on project teams without understanding the context of how they would use it, be it AI, be it any digital tool, it's bound to fail because they can't use it within their day-to-day workflows. Project teams, they face a lot of pressure to deliver within time, quality, schedule, all of that, right? So we have to make sure that we understand it and ensure that whatever AI solution we put out there with the project teams is co-created with them, works for them, is embedded into their delivery workflows, and quite seamlessly is just going to be a part of how they deliver rather than something additional that they have to do. Because as soon as you introduce a new step that they have to perform while delivering their projects, right? That's not going to take. So how is it that we ensure that the solutions that we put in place help with decision making are put at those key control points within the project lifecycle, so that it really clarifies that insight for project teams, helps them deliver quicker, brings clarity in terms of what's going on, gives that insight. As soon as you've done that and you've proven the value, I believe any pilot solution can scale up. And I'm going to again say the foundations are key. Make sure the foundations are in place.
And what does that journey look like at Mott MacDonald to ensure those tools become part of the workflows, just like you're saying? Because it sounds all well and good, but actually executing and implementing, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yes. And this is where we work very, very closely. This is where that bottom-up approach comes in.
Okay.
Where we work very closely with project teams. It's just not about a technology problem, is it? It's more about the mindset shift as well. Bringing a change in terms of how they're going to deliver projects. Not necessarily a bad change, a good change. It would cut down some of the processes that they traditionally have to undergo. So it's about scaling the capability through training, through mindset shifts, making sure that they have the tools readily available and they can maximize those tools rather than creating bespoke solutions. Sharing what works, that's very, very important. So keep the conversation going. Talk about what's working, what's not, and why is it not working. That's very, very important as well. And in midst of all of that, don't forget, talk about how to use it securely, safely, responsibly. And the answer is not building solutions all the time. It's about buying as well, partnering with firms, right? And that's where the focus has been in terms of the bottom up, and also working. So I feel a lot of it, like I said, people led, but change management is key, right? So this is going to change the way that they're going to deliver projects. So you have to work in hand with them. And also leadership plays a big role. They have to inspire the project delivery teams in terms of using AI as part of their workflows. It's not something additional, an additional initiative that sits off on the side that they have to make a use of, but it is part of their delivery workflows, and they have to be encouraged to be using that, and they have to be inspired. And I think these things need to come together. The strong foundation, the culture change, leadership, all of them need to come together to kind of really start embedding AI into those delivery workflows and making that change happen.
It's interesting because I've heard you say leadership, buy-in, culture, maybe even some funding. So as you look at all of those, what are your biggest obstacles really in getting AI and data initiatives adopted at Mott MacDonald?
Those three things play a key role. But in all of that, what we need to do is demonstrate value.
Okay.
And how do we do that without trying to boil the ocean, as I say? So start with very targeted use cases, high value use cases. Start small, learn quickly, adapt and evolve. That's always been our go-to in terms of when we work on these solutions, right? So while making sure the foundations are there in terms of data, the processes around AI adoption, all of that, the culture, the leadership, what we also need to do is make sure that we are demonstrating value at the right point and in small incremental steps so that we are kind of building momentum as well. We are incrementally delivering value, and that encourages a lot of funding and removes a lot of resistance, because as soon as leadership and project teams see that, hey, this is something that's working and it's really improving my decision making, it's helping me deliver projects better, why not, right?
Absolutely. And I think value is key to your comment. And Mott MacDonald does have a very global reach and deep resources, which is, I can hear it, and how far advanced Mott MacDonald is. So what might you tell a smaller or a mid-sized AEC firm when they're trying to build this knowledge and data foundation without maybe this robust infrastructure that Mott MacDonald has?
I believe to get started, we don't need a huge data platform. We don't. What we need to identify are those problem statements, those challenges. And more often than not, when I've had teams approach me, sometimes most of the conversation is solution-led rather than problem-led. And that's where I feel that they miss the trick. You already have a lot of data at your disposal. It's just about unlocking the potential of that data. And how you do it is not through a big investment in a technology platform. No, it's about understanding that problem. What does it take to solve that problem? Can I quickly demonstrate the value of solving that problem? Once we do that, then it's all about building momentum, practical wins, and then scaling up from there. And that would be the advice that I would give. Like, start from the problems. Don't go about thinking about investing in technology platforms yet. The time will come for that. Not yet. But start small, learn quickly, and evolve and adapt.
which is great advice. And I'm sure those small and medium firm size would appreciate what you're saying. And you mentioned earlier that technology, it's more about change management and the people than it was about technology. So what approaches have worked at Mott MacDonald in bringing engineers along, and what tends to possibly backfire?
As soon as you start taking an approach that's technology led, it's bound to fail. So start pushing tools, technologies on project teams without understanding the context of how this will improve the project delivery outcomes, improve the insights gained. Those initiatives are bound to fail. So again, start from the problems. Look at what challenges are out there. How is it that I can solve those challenges near term, mid-term, long-term? Scale up from there, and make sure that you co-create solutions with them, with the engineers, because they know this area better than anybody. Okay, they know what works, they know what will work. So imagine the success if we start co-creating solutions with them, getting their buy-in, demonstrating value early on, taking their advice in terms of how do we scale this? Is this working? Is this not? How can we better improve this solution? Once we start taking them in, on that journey, and we demonstrate value, we start small, they are bound to come in. So it's basically, if you treat this as a technology initiative and a standalone initiative, I don't think adoption will work. It has to be people-led. It has to be on the basis of process. You have to look at the process, see how are these solutions, these tools that we are, advocating for these engineers to use actually improve their lives. Once we are able to demonstrate that value, I think it gets easy. I may be oversimplifying it, but yeah.
No, I think you're spot on. And we're talking about how we demonstrate the value within the organization. There's a next generation that's coming out of the universities today's day and age, and they've grown up with technology. So if you think about, if you were to give advice to a young professional right out of college, interested in AI, digital transformation, maybe even in the AEC space, what would be that advice that you might give to that young professional?
Wow. So I'm thinking about me when I was there in that spot. I would say don't wait for that role to fall on your lap. I would say chase the problems, understand the business, the domain. And once you're able to really understand that problem statement, that challenge, you have all of the skills at your disposal in terms of how to solve for that challenge using AI. So my first advice would be start with the problem and then work up towards a solution. Do not build that solution in isolation. Get your stakeholders with you, right? You have to get their buy-in from day one. So how do you do that? It's by showing value early on. Don't try and build those big bang solutions. You can start small, build value incrementally, and then scale up from there. And I would say that the field of data and AI is evolving so rapidly. The roles around this are changing. I think every week I see a new role pop up in this space. So I would say organically, you're going to find your best fit in terms of role. But you need to start with understanding the business, the challenges in the business, understanding how the solution that you're going to create will actually improve the real world outcomes. Once you touch on those things, people, process, technology, once you touch on all of those things and not look at, just a great technology solutions that's really nifty, you're trying to kind of deploy something out there, I think you're going to see a lot of success. So to round it up, my advice would be don't wait for you to be told what to do. Stay curious, take initiative. Start with understanding the business, the problems in the business, and craft solutions according to that. Bring your stakeholders with you on that journey. Don't treat any of these initiatives as technology first. It's actually people first. once you're able to touch all of these points, you're going to, I think, reach very high in your career.
Well, that's fantastic advice. Especially I have two sons that are in college currently, and oftentimes students think about they just think about the technology or the major. And what you just touched on was the people side, the soft skills, and chasing the problem rather than avoiding the problem. And I think that's excellent advice for all young professionals starting in AI, digital transformation, AEC, or any industry for that matter.
Yep.
So, Namitha, as you look forward within our industry, the AEC industry, what would you say a knowledge-enabled, AI-integrated engineering firm looks like in, let's say, 5 years? What has to be true about data, culture, leadership for us to get there?
I would say AI is going to play a very, very important role in terms of augmentation rather than deep automation. So look out for that. I would say that an organization who is basically AI ready would have gotten their foundations just right, both on the people side, the capability side, and on the data side. The culture in terms of ensuring how is it that you're going to demonstrate value, and how do you embed AI into these delivery workflows. Those are going to be more people-led leadership. That inspiration is going to come top-down in terms of how is it that you're going to embed AI into your delivery workflows. And what I'm saying is you don't need to get all of this perfect. You just need to get it just right. So I'm always an advocate of don't let perfection impede progress. You'll get there, right? But it's all about how is it that you show incremental value, having that big picture in mind, and scaling up from there. And I feel a truly knowledge-enabled, AI-enabled AEC organization would have cracked all of this.
Namitha, I can sit and talk with you for hours, and this has been such a wonderful conversation and very, very helpful to myself, and I'm sure the audience as well. So thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate you taking the time. And thank you to our audience for joining us today on the Trailblazers podcast. Until next time, take care.